Welcome to the Stanford Medicine X Halftime Show. This program is a live recorded broadcast and tweet chat that runs each day of the 2016 Medicine X conference. The aim of this program is to engage and include our online audience in conversations happening at Medicine X and on our social media channels. The views and opinions expressed on this broadcast are those of the individual participants and not those of the Stanford University School of Medicine or the conference organizers. If you are joining us live, keep in mind that there is a simultaneous conversation happening on Twitter right now using the hashtag MedX. Lisa Bernstein, also known as It's the Bunk, is the online moderator and will be taking questions from social media. So please make sure to start up your Twitter client to join in the online conversation and interact with today's speakers. Please note you are watching a live online program and there is a delay between real-time events and the live stream you are watching. Tweets from our in-studio guests will appear before you see the real-time events they are tweeting about unfold on the video live stream. The topic of today's show is patient advocacy, how to empower and get everyone included. In this episode, we are going to be exploring how the patient can be supported in today's complex healthcare system. With us today is a diverse panel of patients and industry leaders with expertise and interest in healthcare innovation, including Brian Loew, CEO of Inspire, a company that creates a safe place for patients and caregivers to support and connect with each other online. The goal of this program is to hear from our guests, have them share with us their views on these issues, and of course, to answer your questions out there from our viewing audience on Twitter.
Welcome to the first ever Medicine X Live halftime show here, live from Medicine X. I'd like to introduce you to my co-host, Brian.
Hello, nice to be here.
And I'd like you also to introduce you to two wonderful panelists that we have today, Erin and Rebecca. And we're going to have a great conversation about how to empower and get everyone included in the conversation. Also, we have Lisa Bernstein. She's at It's the Bunk on Twitter. So feel free to engage with us live on Twitter and we will try and answer your questions over the next 30 minutes. So we will kick off today, I think, with you, Rebecca. Just a quick question. What does it mean to be an empowered patient?
I think empowered patients are patients that are a part of a community. When patients get together and kind of pool their resources and information, they can be stronger together.
So it's not personal, it's a bigger community cause.
Right. Going beyond your own experience and caring about your fellow patients and the patients that will come after you.
Erin?
I don't know if I necessarily agree with that because I do think that it is a little bit personal. So like I have to own my part of the healthcare relationship. I can't go to a doctor and get help. I can go to a doctor and get advice, but then I have to apply it. My outcome is dependent on both parts of that. Yeah. And I think in 2016, a lot of the time we go to our peers for another component of that. And for me, that's being empowered. It's what I do as an individual, how I connect to my community and to the resources that I need to connect to in order to optimize my health outcome.
So it starts with you making that first choice.
Yeah, I think so.
And I'm guessing that's from your side. You jumped into the community, but you've made the decision to want to go and help others and be part of that.
And it benefits me too. When I'm part of a community, I help others and they help me. It's kind of pooling your resources and pooling your talents.
And Brian, at Inspire, you've got communities on communities, patients talking every single day.
Right.
Do you get a sense in your communities as to why they come on board? What is the reason that they come there first?
Sure. It seems to us that people have kind of three different needs. There's a need for practical support. How do I deal with my condition? Emotional support. How do I go through this experience and all the emotions that go through it? And then scientific support, which usually comes from doctors or other scientific sources. And the community really can support all three of those. Patients look not only to the sources of their that they've traditionally used, like doctors, but they also look to peers for information about how to deal with their disease. A lot of people join these communities when they're just diagnosed. So they come home from the doctor or they learn that they have a new diagnosis. There's a huge flood of new information and they suddenly have to get used to all sorts of new things and learn very, very quickly. And I'm sure both of you have gone through this as well. And it's clear to us that patients are able to help one another in a very rapid fashion, 24 hours a day, in the middle of the night, when people need help in ways that traditional medicine could never do.
Erin, I mean, you touched upon in 2016 and the world we live in today, you've been on a long journey in this space. And how's it changed, do you think? Has the role of the patient changed over the last few years? Do you feel more empowered, less empowered?
I think it has changed, definitely. And I think it has changed because of the e-patient, empowered patient movement and our ability to help others kind of see what it is that they have in them that they need to do. So it's the same sense of community that we were talking about. I think before it was, if you sort of got a good doctor, if you fell into a good community and you found the right people, they could help to lift you up and realize your potential and tell you that your ideas aren't silly, to fight for them, to go down a certain path, or to keep asking questions or whatever. And now it's spread because there's so many more of us, so it's not reliant on a healthcare provider to say, no, that was a great question, ask another, or come to me with your questions, and all of these sort of things. It's definitely become more of a two-way street, where more patients, I think, are going in with that mindset and mentality, as there are kind of healthcare providers offering and enabling people to interact that way, and also being accepting of it. They're starting to realize that there are so many more of us that are acting in this way, to accept and appreciate that when we pool our intelligence, we both know more. It's not like I give you information and now I know less. Like, we both know more now that we've collaborated. So
that for me is quite an interesting dynamic. And I don't know, Rebecca, when you first took information to your doctor or first started having that conversation, I actually think it takes quite a lot of bravery from a doctor to be willing to engage in that way. So is it patients that are actually changing that dynamic? Or, how did you feel when you first walked in the room and you started having a conversation? What reactions were you getting?
Well, I guess sometimes when I've talked to my doctors about any online information or online communities I've been a part of, that they first kind of have a look of terror on their face, like, oh gosh, what did you Google? What do you know? And then they're relieved that no, there's a really organized community online that has really good information that's going to help us with my treatment plan. And then they start to get used to it. But I think there's kind of a stigma of patients Googling things that hopefully will be outdated pretty soon.
So, and as you talked on in the communities, because everything's so open, how do you know who are trusted sources in a way? Who are the patients that you get? We're lucky, we're sitting here with two amazing panelists. They are trusted sources of information, but it's difficult sometimes. How do your communities navigate that?
One of the best things in the last 10 years certainly has been the availability of information. That it used to be that when you were diagnosed with something, particularly a lesser known medical condition, it was very hard to find information, and that patients would, unless you lived near a medical school library, it was very hard to find a lot of information. Now obviously a great deal of authoritative information is available online, and that's much appreciated. But to your second point, patients now incorporate information from different sources, and so they're able to look at information from their peers who are dealing with specific conditions and combine it with authoritative medical information. And it's that ability to combine information which we think is the most powerful.
I have a comment about that too. I think that part of the fear that's involved with patient communities from the provider side is the fact that the conversation isn't balanced. And a lot of times in patient communities, like, fiction becomes fact and it takes on a life of its own, right? And there's not science to back that. But there is a lot of research and there is a lot of data, some of it that we have access to and some of it that we don't as patients. But I think that the opportunity is for clinicians to join us in those communities and listen and learn from us, and then contribute to the conversations and develop trusted shared information together.
That's right. And we find that the good information pushes out the bad. So there is the Wikipedia phenomenon. Where good information pushes out bad, subject matter experts weigh in and correct mistaken assumptions, and And if you look at the overall quality of the data, it is quite high.
So just a reminder for those watching the live stream, you can tweet us and interact with us using the hashtag MEDX. Join the conversation and feel free to ask questions to Brian, to Erin, to Rebecca at any time over the course of the next few minutes. So use the hashtag MEDX. I wanted to take that trust, that respect, that empathy onto the next stage. At Medicine X here, the conversation has moved on to this everyone included model. What does that mean for you as a patient? Just when you hear it, what does it resonate?
I think everyone included can't be an afterthought. I think kind of the old model of patient inclusion was, okay, we're planning a conference or doing a research study, and all of the planning is just with the researchers and doctors, and then it's just at the very last minute, they'll invite patients and just ask for feedback. But now, in this new model of everyone included, it's patients are in the planning stages, in the execution stages, and it's truly equal, not just, hey, we already did this, what do you think about it?
Yeah, and I find it quite a bizarre thing in healthcare that we just do things very differently that we would take for granted in ordinary life. You know, I'm sure Amazons or car companies, they don't build a model without everybody being talked to, particularly the end users, yet we do that in healthcare. And do you feel people are willing to participate in a conversation when you want to open up that conversation to more people, when it's more than just you and the doctor or the nurse, if you have to include other parties, or is that still something that needs to gain a bit of momentum?
I think it's still evolving a little bit. I think that people want the opportunity to tell you what they know, and they're not given the opportunity to do that. There's no receptacle for them to do that a lot of the time. But I think we're getting there. And, you know, like you were saying, and when it's typically it's been built and then we're asked if we like the wallpaper color, and that's not going to change the structure of the building, right? Like if you plan a building without a third floor, you can't add a third floor when it's done, you know?
Yeah.
Or like if you're just, if I'm like, I can think of community organizing, right? Or like urban planning. If I'm trying to build a highway, they're thinking about the fastest way to get me from point A to point B. Only if my priority is to get there fast, right? Like if I want to see something different. So I think it's everyone included. I'm sort of passionate about the precision medicine work and personalized medicine, really finding solutions for individuals. Not everyone wants to be included in the same conversations, but giving them the opportunity to participate in what they want to participate in, I think is where we need to start.
And isn't that about what you touched upon, about the respect, about having empathy, about sort of democratizing health in a way? And I'm guessing, you know, through Inspire and what you do, you probably have more than just patients on these communities.
Well, that's right. It's important not to forget caregivers, so family members who are caregivers. In addition to physicians and other people with medical roles, patients and caregivers as well play a huge part. Caregivers are hugely influential in the way that patient care occurs, and the voices of caregivers are now, I think, widely recognized as being important. That's a lot of progress. One other thing I would add about what you said is that timing is important as well. So one of the things we've learned is that your knowledge of your condition evolves over time. You learn more, and what we see a lot is that patients, when they're newly diagnosed, are often mostly listening. And then over time, they become patient experts and then are teaching others. A lot of patients and caregivers both find it really valuable to be able to teach others what they've learned.
And so, Rebecca, is it ever okay not to be empowered? I know as a patient myself, there are times when I just need to be fixed, and actually I can't engage. And I'm tired, and I'm sure you've seen it as well, you know, and sometimes it's almost, you've created this empowered disease patient movement, and actually sometimes just fix me. Do you feel that, do you experience that as well, and that changing dynamic?
I think sometimes you need to take breaks when self-care is really important. Like you can't fully sacrifice yourself for the greater movement. That's why it's a community. That's why there's other people that can pick up where you left off, or or cover for you. It's a team effort, I think.
What's utopia for you in this whole everyone included e-patient world? What's the ideal? Yeah, dream. Tell me. You're so engaged in it. You are one of the people we turn to and we look at as a real thought leader. Dream for a minute. What does the role of the patient become?
I think the role of the patient become it's I don't want to normalize it in terms of saying that it's not important or sacred to be a patient, but I want people to see and accept that what we know is as important as what exists in the medical literature. I want people and information to intersect at the right time every time. I don't want to stumble upon information on Facebook or any other social learning platform just in time. That's done. We don't do that anywhere else anymore.
Absolutely.
But we rely on that in healthcare. I have to see, that another parent didn't need to have their kid put asleep for a sinus CT on Twitter 30 minutes before my kid gets put to sleep for a sinus CT scan to even bring it up. So what we don't know is hurting us. Yep. It's costing money, it's costing time, it is keeping people sick. And so I want a wealth of knowledge and information and people to seamlessly intersect with one another so that we have access to it, to the right people at the right time, every time.
Here, let me follow up on that. Let's say, because one of the things we find that inspires that there seems to be a lot of knowledge that's not evenly distributed. So patients have a lot of insight about something that can help other patients, but the doctors of that other patient don't know about it yet. Could give lots of examples ranging from administration of a treatment to selection of treatment. Do you think that there are good pathways, everyone here, are there good pathways for patients to inform those who write the guidelines or inform pharmaceutical companies about what they've learned?
So Jolene's feeling very engaged at the moment online. She's talking about feeling included. Jolene, tell us how you would answer Brian's question as well. And Erin, talk to us about the guidelines. Talk to us about policy and things. You've had an influence in that space to a degree. Yeah, come on.
How does the information flow from patients to policymakers?
Yeah, it's not well right now. I don't think it does well right now. I think that we need to get to a different place. Like for me, in my work and in my advocacy, Twitter, honestly, has been a communication vehicle that has allowed me to share what I know and put it out there in the universe, not to one specific person, but just into the universe so that anybody can take whatever it is that they need. I think that it's important to continue to advocate and to find partners who believe in the same thing that you believe in, because we grow exponentially then. I'm just one person times one person. Together we're two people times two people, so it grows very differently. And I think that's some of the value of these conferences and these online communities is growing the movement so that it starts to get some legs and starts to make a difference. Because I'm just one crazy person dancing in the rain, right? And when I have followers,
crazy people,
right? When I have followers, there's a great TED talk about the first follower, right? The value of the first follower. People follow followers. They don't always follow the leader, right? And so, in this space, we're some of the leaders, but we have to find the other people who are like us because they're the ones that can translate it. People don't always understand what I'm saying, but the one person who does understand what I'm saying can translate that on to a whole group of other people. So we have to be able to kind of make sure that the information can continue to flow.
And Rebecca, so a new patient comes to you or you connect with another patient, how do you bring them into that community? From your experiences, what are the ways, taking Erin's point of, it takes one to follow. How do you encourage the patient that is really bewildered and, just maybe been diagnosed, but they've started following you? How do you bring them in?
I tell them about other patient leaders in my space. So I think in narcolepsy community, Julie 5 Hours, obviously a great resource, and Project Sleep. And then there's patient organizations. I think that's kind of their job of a patient organization, is to be that resource for patients when they're newly diagnosed. They're they're looking for social media communities or if they're looking for a list of questions to ask their doctor, those are really important online resources that patient organizations like to have put together nicely, easy to find.
And, you know, patients that come onto the community, Brian, some of them, I'm guessing, I know I was one of them, you're nervous when you come on, you know, it's my first post, my first, what do I ask, whatever.
Right.
Do you then see them really start to flourish after that first engagement?
You do. It's important that someone.
Journey?
It's important that someone's able to join without feeling pressure. So most members, when they join, read it first, get to know other people, become comfortable in the community, and then begin to post. Not everyone posts, and that's okay too. In Inspire, about 50% of members post, and about half simply read, and some fraction of the half who post a lot. But you see a whole range of activity. There's also communication going on behind the scenes where members are sending messages to one another privately, and those are very important. There's some deep friendships that form. There have even been a few marriages in Inspire. It's a real community. It's a real community.
That's crazy.
That's right.
Brilliant.
That's right.
I think the one comment that I want to add to this part of the conversation seems to be about kind of passing that knowledge and helping other people to feel empowered. And I think that, you know, I will often get people sort of coming to me looking for how to become an e-patient, right? And like I know some secret or something that I don't. And what I've realized, though, is that in order to be like me, you don't have to do what I do. You have to do what you do, right? Like I have to figure out what it is that you do.
Such an important lesson.
So when they come to me and they're like, but how do you this? Instead of telling them what I do, I'm asking more questions. Well, why are you involved in this? Well, what do you care about? Well, what are your concerns? Well, how do you think that could change? And then they can start to see inside of themselves what they have, what power they hold to kind of create change.
You see them open up.
You see them open up a little bit.
And move all of that.
Yeah.
Just a reminder for those watching the live stream, we've got another few minutes left. You can tweet us using the hashtag MEDEX as Catherine Costa has done. So please join the conversation online. We've got a few minutes left of this live show. I want to talk to you a little bit about where we go, next steps for you as a patient. You know, you're empowered, you're really engaged, you're as Erin has used, you know, people gravitate to those, they think they see you out there. Is there a responsibility then to try and pass that on?
Absolutely. So that's a program that I'm a part of now. We are training other people with narcolepsy who are interested in becoming patient advocates, training them in public speaking and writing op-eds and getting published. So that's exactly where my focus is now.
You know, because listen, Medicine X is an amazing conference. We have an amazing time, but also it can be daunting for patients to walk into this environment and they see these conversations or they hear these conversations and go, can I really be part of that? It's challenging, you know, but I think we all took that first step in a way, and I think that training, that advocacy is really important.
Some of it, though, it's either somebody that brings you along for the ride or somebody that empowers you to take that first step. So I don't think, I'll speak for myself, not for all of you, but I didn't just hear about MEDEX and then show up.
Okay.
You know what I mean? I had, somebody that I worked with was like, you should check this out. And I thought, well, why? Who am I to come to a conference like this? And it wasn't until you were here and you realize all of these superpowers that all of these people have. And then you're like, what's mine? Why am I here? Why do I belong? How do I fit in? You leave wanting to do more.
I think that, absolutely right. And Brian, do you want to inspire? You know, it's just grown and grown beyond. Every year you come back and you give a talk here and you talk to us about where does Inspire go over the next few years? Is it just more patients telling more stories? Where does it go for you?
It's more patients and more partnerships with patient advocacy organizations, which is a big part of what we do with 100 national nonprofit patient advocacy groups. groups. But what we're very interested in now is the data that flows from patient interactions. So the ability for patients to share data they've learned, both qualitative and quantitative data, unstructured and structured, and to help each other and ultimately to advance medical progress through patient-reported data. What's heartening to us is that 10 years ago when we started the company, there was not a lot of interest in industry or in the scientific community in patient-reported data. And now that seems to have changed quite a bit. And I think everyone here at the conference shares that as a goal. So that's one of the most heartening things to me, and it's part of our future.
And as a brilliant co-host, you've kind of gone on to the last segue that I wanted to touch on, which was this data bit.
Yes.
In some occasions, it's okay to share their data. We get, in the UK, I think the data conversation is clouded by a vocal minority who just go, you can't share anything. But when it's life and death, when it's real, you do what it takes to live. Where does this whole data conversation from a patient go? Where do you feel? I mean,
I think it's personalized. I think people should be given the opportunity. I think that vehicles should exist that allow me to contribute whatever it is that I want to contribute and allow access to it or shut down access to it as I want to, as is appropriate.
Erin's got it right. What patients really want is control. Patients want to be able to control what happens with their data. It's not, in our experience, whether they want to share or don't. It's that they want to decide whether it can be shared with their permission.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel you own your data? Do you feel it is your data, or do you feel it's the doctor's?
I feel like it's the doctor's data now, and that's a change I'd like to see in the next couple of years.
Why? What is it?
I don't even have access to all my data online. It's crazy in 2016.
Yeah.
It's interesting, though, because I think there's a difference now that we've identified this patient-reported outcome data.
Yep.
So, like, stuff that I generate about myself when I weigh my son or when I take his temperature or I have a pulse ox at home that I can, check different numbers and stuff on. I consider that my data that I'm contributing and making decisions on, even though the data that they collect about him at the hospital, that's still our data. But it's viewed as their data. Yeah. It's their notes. It's their collection. And I just think that needs to kind of, I think we need to shift a little bit. So,
and maybe that's part of this everyone included conversation, that actually that's the power of the conversation, power of our voices coming together to make those changes. We are really close to time out, so I want to thank my co-host Brian. It's been a pleasure working with you.
Thank you.
And Erin and Rebecca, you've been fantastic. You can follow Erin on Twitter at @eKeeleyMoore and Rebecca at Rebecca Foucault. And Brian, obviously, you can contact him or go to @TeamInspire to continue the conversation. And don't forget the hashtag MEDEX. Thank you very much for joining us, and we will see you same time tomorrow.
Bye-bye.
Thanks so much for joining us today for the Stanford Medicine X halftime show. We'll see you back here tomorrow at 12 noon daylight time when we'll discuss the topic, what does patient centricity really mean to pharma? Moderated by Michael Sears with a panel of leaders in the pharmaceutical industry. You won't want to miss the next episode of the Stanford Medicine X halftime show. For all of you out there taking time to tune in with us today, thank you for joining us and being part of the conversation. A special thanks to our guest panelists today. Please stay tuned. We will return shortly, continuing our main stage conference programming